But guys, listen, it's time to move on. So 3 weeks are in the books for the PFL's 2024 regular season. What does all that mean? All of their fighters in the 6 weight classes have fought their first round of fights. They each get one more fight, and then according to their point system, they will advance to the playoffs. So it's really just 2 regular season games, or in this case, fights. So if you don't know, if you get a win, it's 3 points or more. If you lose, you get no points. And in addition to what I mean by or more, fighters who finish their fights, they get additional bonuses. So you get 3 points if you finish the fight in round 1, 2 points if you finish the fights in round 2, 1 point if you get finish the fight in round 3. So you might want to go to the PFL website. They have the list of the standings there, and then you can make some more sense of this. Listen, guys, I want to know, what's your review to the start of the 2024 season? We're going to start off with Danny Segura.
I like the 2024 season so far. I think with the merger with the Bellator roster, I think we've seen better fights. These last few cards have been pretty good. They just been under promoted, in my opinion. They just haven't made that impact. But the fights themselves, like I was looking at them, and there's some solid finishes there, and there's some quality MMA, which is the most important thing. It doesn't feel like a huge tier below the UFC. In fact, on some weekends, I would actually argue that the PFL has a better card than the UFC. So I've actually enjoyed the product. I think the commentary is great. I like Big John's role that he's in now. I would give it a thumbs up. I'm genuinely interested in how this plays out. And something that I didn't like about the previous seasons is that a lot of these like first bouts, like the season bouts, the playoff bouts would get competitive and there would be big names going against each other. But already early in the season, we're seeing some pretty good fights and some pretty competitive fights, given how the merger of the two rosters, just having a better quality of fighters. So I actually think the PFL is doing a good job here. I just would like for them to, and I don't know what else they could do, but just get their product out there a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Goes, what's your review so far, and what do you think of the impact of that Bellator roster that has splashed onto some of the PFL series, which is the regular season and the playoffs?
Well, I've always enjoyed PFL, and I think that the season format is what kind of makes it really interesting. Every fight matters, and they add a little bit of a wrinkle every year. But the influx of the Bellator talent is what's making this year stand out a little bit, because let's be honest, how many times are you going to see Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins and Brendan Loughnane? Like, they needed some fresh faces, some new storylines, and this kind of helped them out a little bit. As far as the influx goes, like, we had the pay-per-view, it went Bellator's way, but really, if you look at the season, this is kind of where PFL is going to stand out a little bit more, because of probably some experience, right? The experience factor. Because if you look at it, a lot of the Bellator fighters took losses in the not all of them, but a lot of them did, man. Storley, Gracie, Matt Burnell, Patricky Pitbull, Piccolotti, like a lot of them took losses, and the PFL could maybe even puff their chest a little bit, right? Because they took a beating in that head-to-head. Now it's starting to even out a little bit, but it's really helping to have those fresh faces, those fresh matchups. And like Danny said, even Big John kind of coming over and giving his side of things. I've enjoyed it. I think it's been really cool.
Mm-hmm. Dan, Tom, you have a grade for PFL so far after 3 weeks? Excuse me.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed the early PFLs, and I've admittedly had trouble, staying with them. But I believe that they're just really fun follows, especially if you can tune in and really like kind of follow the stories. And what I like most about PFL, and this is something that we saw, you mentioned, with the upset against Mads Burnell and some other notable fighters. But you saw this really early on in PFL too, where there's something about it where it's really upset heavy. I know, Bellator had Scott Coker, and shout out to Rich Chu for a matchmaker. So you had, more in line with like traditional Strikeforce matchmaking that we were kind of used to. But with PFL, perhaps it is that tournament, not tournament, playoff, league series, if you will. But man, it is so upset heavy that that alone, whether you're a gambler or just a casual fan or anything in between, there's a lot there, I think, for PFL entertainment wise. I know their pacing was a big complaint. It does seem like they've kind of cleaned that up. Although I will say, like, a lot of people complain about the gimmicks, like the smart cage and stuff. I just say go full gimmick, make this thing look like, an 80s movie, like Over the Top, give Daniel James some motor oil to start drinking like he's Grizzly, like really promote these characters, like get it out there more, like Danny said. Maybe not not what Danny meant, but, I say go gimmicky, more gimmicky, more gimmicky.
Josh Wallace actually was saying something similar. He says the show is so god dang boring. I literally was losing interest as the night went on. And I think it's something that goes and I touched on Junkie Radio as well. It's just that pacing. Once the fights do start, I have become a fan because of I expect the unexpected. Oh, Clay Collard has like sent a lot of UFC vets packing, and I know they've been upsets, and I know they've also kind of blown the whole free agency is kind of blown up in the PFL space. But then at the same time, you can't say they're not organic, and what they say and stand behind is not true. And that's the fact that you perform, you advance, there's no politics involved. So that's pretty refreshing, and it's a good push for the UFC. And look, I know a lot of you are just UFC fans. That's where Kayla Harrison came from. So the same one that came over and smashed the former UFC bantamweight champion, that's where she came from. The talent's all over the world, folks. But we do give the UFC their flowers. They're the it show. They're the NFL. All right. From each one of you, give me someone who you think after seeing them perform and seeing their points, where they stand, who's kind of almost like a lock. And I hope I don't jinx them, but to win this whole season and playoffs. We'll start off with Danny Segura. Who do you like here?
I got to go with Tayla Santos. I've thought Tayla Santos is one of the best fighters in the world. I thought she beat Valentina Shevchenko back when, they fought for the belt. She picked up a first-round submission against Ilara Joain, and she looked damn good doing it. I do still think she's one of the greatest female fighters at 125 pounds, like I said. And these are the type of free agents that PFL needs to go after, not the free agents that are going on a long losing streak. No, Tayla Santos had her issues with the UFC. She told us on exclusive here on MMA Junkie what those were, so you can check out that article is up on the site. But she left not because she wasn't good. She was still a top 5 world-class fighter. She just left because she had differences with the UFC. I do think she's going to win this tournament and these $1 million price. She's great. And she's 30 years old. She's still in her prime. So I'm going to go with Tayla Santos to win the whole thing.
Goes, who do you like to win it all?
Yeah, I think that's a good pick too. Look, George, lock is a strong word, and it's so difficult in this type of format. But one thing I look at is winning that first fight and getting a stoppage early. That does so much for you. It takes off a lot of pressure. I think Brendan Loughnane in the featherweight division, being at the top of that standings, even though he was able to take a tough cat out in Pedro Carvalho, didn't have to see some of the same faces, but this is a guy that's been through this over and over. He basically lives in one gigantic fight camp for like the last 4 years. He's got the system down. Braga, Timur, those are going to be tough fights, but I don't know that he's going to have to face them all. So I'm going to go with him.
Damn, that's some great B-roll right there. Great stoppage by Brendan Loughnane. I know he felt like it was controversial, but man, he got some clean shots in. Thank you for that, Cold Coffee. All right, Dan Tom, finish up, man. Who do you think can take down the season?
Excellent shouts. I would love to, get behind a dark horse and go opposite of Goes, but I also like his Brendan Loughnane pick. Was out there in Bangtan Muay Thai. I got to watch this guy and his dedication up close. Really great pick there. Fortunately, I'm going to have to go head to head with my guy, Danny. Although Tayla Santos is a great pick, I've just seen so many fighters upset from time and time again, almost going back 20 years now, it feels like, because I just popped in Liz Carmouche's Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen title debut back in Strikeforce against one of my favorite female fighters who doesn't get enough love, Marloes Kunin. And Gorilla's been just muscling girl since back then, and she continues to get better. She's always an underdog, always discounted. And say what you will, I do agree with Danny. You can make definite scoring arguments for Tayla Santos in her last fight, maybe or in her fight with Shevchenko, maybe even her last fight. However, we did see though that fighters that can kind of survive and make it ugly in the grappling realm can maybe produce an upset against Santos. So I wouldn't discount Carmouche, even if you like the Santos side. I'll go ahead and go with Gorilla here for my pick.
All right. Well, we're a little short on time, so I don't have enough time to give you guys a good whitewash like I had planned, both Danny and Dan. You got to keep an eye on Dakota Ditcheva. I think she's going to smash both of you girls. She is tall, lanky, explosive. She can fight with the Muay Thai plum, not just straight on, but when she's up against the fence, she knows how to turn that knee as well. And then mean, her takedown defense is really, really good. She's got great balance. Like you grab a single and she'll just hop on one leg. If you put her up against the fence, she knows how to, spread her base and get underhooks. She goes for wrist control. Like she's really, really cerebral there. She's with a good team at American Top Team, and she's just young and ready to go, man. So I just think it's going to be her, guys. I can't believe all three of us are in the flyweight division. So it'll be funny at the end of the year. Two of us are going to have to eat some crow, or maybe a fourth party will actually make all three of us eat crow. I don't know.
We'll
But
see.